Morning at NTV. We are live from Kampala Swimming Conference Center. On the horizon, and I look outside, it's a little bit getting a little better. The rain is going down, but I understand from a couple of people that traffic jam is horrendous on the road. So if you've not traveled to Kampala yet, if you've not yet left home, well, I urge you to, get on the road a little bit faster. If you can, and it's not raining in your vicinity, jump on a bike, because traffic seems to be very, very appalling. Now, yesterday we had a conversation, and it's a conversation we're having today as Uganda. We are signatories to a couple of pacts and agreements and stages with regards to human rights. Yesterday, journalists were escorting a former presidential aspirant, that is, rather candidate, that is Chagulanyi Sentamu Robert, and he was taking a petition to the United Nations human rights officers here in Kampala just to show how he was dissatisfied on the human rights abuses, abductions, kidnappings of his members in his party. Now, the military police and security agencies, they pounced on the journalists who are covering this very kind of event. Now, to bring this conversation to context, we have Mr. SEMPALA Robert from the Uganda Human Rights Network for Journalists to understand this. Mr. SEMPALA, I understand we have had this conversation a month ago, and we are back again. What is going on? Where is this wrath coming from, especially from security to us?
Whenever you see the military taking shape in managing public order,
yes,
you expect the ugly to happen.
Okay.
And that is what exactly we anticipated when we saw them arrive at the scene. Just like carpenters,
yes,
they normally use hammers to put together their wood and craft out something. So
yes,
for every problem that they're confronted with, they think they should hammer it just to fix it. So these ones are supposed to be military police, to be policing the military.
Oh,
so
yes,
whenever I put them in the public domain to manage civilians like journalists, like people who are dissatisfied with their the kidnaps of their people, this is what they're going to do. They're going to wreak a lot of havoc, and they think even they have not done anything. When you hear the spokespersons of the police chiefs or army chiefs, they're just talking like nothing happened, because to them that is really nothing.
Isolated incidents.
Yes, making very reckless statements to the
yes,
effect that some journalists attacked the guys, and so they had to repulse them from the place. No, it really baffles us that such things happen just in the face of the human rights officers.
And cameras are running. And
cameras are running. And this is a place where we all must run to if we are aggrieved in any way. And remember, sometime the Ugandan government had asked the UN Office of Human Rights to pack and leave.
Yes.
But then they realized they still had work to do in the country and
yes,
asked them to stay. So now that people are going there, government should be very happy that they at least petition the most rightful organizations. But then the fact that you do not want the journalists to follow up a presidential candidate, a former presidential candidate, because he's opposition. And we have severally come out to say that government has literally criminalized dissent and coverage of the opposition activities in the
yes,
country. Even when we know very much that we are in a multi-party political dispensation, the government and the security, to be specific, don't believe that the media that covers the opposition is as innocent, as professional as the rest who cover NRM and other government functions.
But Robert, where did we get here? We are signatories to the Rome Statute. We are signatories to the regional pact that amplify the issues of human rights. We are signatories to a lot of accords around the globe. Where did our relationship go sour between the journalists and the security? Because just a few months ago, I think just a month ago, by the way, we didn't cover security. We said until we are sure of the relationship we are having. They came out, they apologized, they said we are going to do this, and they pounced on us again. And when did we go wrong? Actually,
Andrew, for that moment, when the walkout happened, we had a series of activities that we had organized to show this pressure. Yes, with how security was handling our colleagues. But then when they came out and approached us, we thought, okay, that is the end of it, because these people have learned the hard way. And now that they're choosing peace between us and them,
yes,
we thought these things should never happen again. But now that they are happening, we have to go back on the drawing board. We're already talking amongst ourselves as media development organizations, as editors, as
the Editors Guild,
yes, as our colleagues from Parliament, Uganda Parliamentary Press Association, Mr. Moses Mulondo, our colleagues from Uganda Journalists Association, a number of actors, so that we can come up with a common amplified voice and see what actions we can concretely take. Because we cannot take this lying down and think that this is all normal and that it's going to end with these journalists that were beaten yesterday. Because you don't know what Bobi Wine is about to do next, and he will certainly be followed by journalists because he's an entity in our body politic of this country.
Yes.
So it's not true that we think this was the end. Given that there are no apologies, these people are not remorseful at all. You only think that they are going to organize and even do worse of things than what they did yesterday.
When you look at this from your journalistic lens and as an administrator of human rights for journalists, don't you think this is the time we should have the Minister of Information come strong and stand with us, because that's our support structure? The minister is just tweeting. The minister is not coming before cameras and telling us this should be done. Do you think we have leadership as an information entity in this country?
When they beat up journalists in Luka, when they beat up journalists in Kalangala, when many things have been happening, and we've been pleading with the line ministry through her assistants and everyone else, and she just thought that everything was normal, all was okay. The best she would offer was a tweet. And we're saying, how interactive is this tweet? How many people are interacting with you via your tweets? And so we just think that at least as an industry, the media industry, we have to crave for so much and do it ourselves. We cannot wait on to see what the minister is going to do. She certainly will only come out to tell us, you people behave, COVID is still real, and a few of those things that everybody already knows about. But things that really touch her ministry, for me, I'm very disappointed that so far what we are seeing is not sufficient from a ministry. Not even the commissioners that are there that used to be spokespersons like my colleague Watasa. But these people are supposed to represent the minister where she doesn't at least occupy that space.
They're silent.
And we even have our colleagues, the Muhammad Katelegas, who are helping the minister. And all these people are mysteriously and suspiciously silent over these beatings of journalists. And at the end of the day, they want to say that we are the line ministry. But also have an ugly history of the ministry. That there's a time when we had to apply for funds from the DGF, and we had to get a letter from the line ministry. It took us a whole year, and they did not give us the letter because they just wanted to fail us. Much as you think they would support us, because we amplify the voices of the key entities under the ministry, which is the media. So you really think that they look at things selectively. They think that journalists should not have their independency. They think that journalists should toe government lines, and that media should be co-opted in all government things and not any other
Mr.
voices
SEMPALA.
of dissent.
Baguma Jared here on Twitter says, thank you so much, Baguma, for being a part of this conversation this morning. He says that you condemn but tell journalists to follow the right way and stop political activism. There is a notion that journalists are now political activists in silos or in a low-key tone. So where do we draw the line of political activism and doing your job?
Bwana Baguma has a legitimate point, and certainly we have always come out to ask journalists to toe professional lines.
Yes.
Certainly when he comes out on that front, I support him to some extent, but the entire media should not be lumped up together to say all journalists are politicking or they're into activism. Because if there is any such a journalist, please single them out. We have had our colleagues who have been ardent and active politicians like Muhammad Katelega Musazi is the NRM. He has stood in the party primaries. He has written for New Vision, the Vision.
So we know what he aligns to.
Yes, we have Charles Serugama. We have many of them. So for me, it should not even be a crime that a journalist is taking up leadership from a political angle. Because journalists are just equal to the task like any other person. They are qualified. If S6 graduates are standing for parliament, why should journalists who are graduates not take up these positions? So people should not be scared of what journalists are capable of doing. And these journalists are employed by media houses. They know what they expect of them. So if they sway off the line, certain media houses will beat them into shape to say, hey, Andrew, we employed you to do this, and you're not doing that. As opposed to saying journalists should shy away from politics. For me, I am not coming from that school of thought.
Yes.
That journalists should not offer leadership at the national level. I would be very happy to wake up a day when we have a journalist for a president. And when our colleagues, Carburetor came out and...
You're like, this is it.
I was like, okay, the media voice, now they are going to respect us as the media entity, because we even have people who are equal to the task of challenging the presidency. So for me, I'm not about to say journalists are not as equal as other politicians, and that so they do not have a stake. They should be given space to see what they are capable of doing. Because we have always even cried out...
But not political activism.
What is political activism?
Because they feel the media is very passionate when it's covering opposition, you know, events and whatever that comes with
Andrew, whenever you're deployed to cover
you have to cover
an event, you do not go in halfway because you're a journalist. You go in full scale and cover the story. You even make friends.
Yes.
Sometimes when you hobnob with people, you even learn to live like them, to walk like them, talk like them.
Yes.
And that happens to people who cover the opposition candidates, and those who cover the NRM and the government functions. So you have a return of friends from within the circles that you normally operate from. So it should not be a crime that some people are hobnobbing with Bobi Wine and they become friends, and they become friends to Poa, they become friends to Katumba. They cover them. They're not supposed to be like enemies in that real sense. So what is political activism that Mr. Baguma is talking about? If journalists are they are voters, we have a civic right to vote. We have to interrogate situations. You know, we have to duly interact with whoever we can. And for that matter, I agree with him to some extent. The journalists should not be seen to say we, meaning we NRM or we NUP or we FDC. They should be seen to at least store some line of independence and be able to even hold the politicians they cover accountable. That I agree to a certain extent. And that's what the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda is preoccupied with: professionalism, ethical journalism, and all those
David
things.
Louis Marcos on Twitter says, you journalists have deliberately shown your side. I thank God they beat you. Some of you, they disciplined you. Every time you're sidelining with the people power for your own selfish interest of standing for political positions.
I have no comment for him. It doesn't merit for my comment.
Yes, that is his opinion. We are having Mr. SEMPALA here, and we understand that my colleague Ivan Kamana Walunyolo in Entebbe, he has sampled a couple of feedback from the people about what they think about security entities going up to arms with journalists, beating them in broad daylight at human rights offices when cameras are rolling. Kamana, if you can hear me, what's the latest from your area?
Well, a very good to you, Andrew Chamagan, and our audience. I am coming to you from Entebbe municipality, but of course we know from what happened yesterday between the journalists and the military, when the NUP, or the National Unity Platform presidential candidate Robert Chagulanyi was going to file his petition, or submitting his petition to the UN Human Rights Desk. Of course, it's something that has called for attention even within our jurisdiction, but also instilling fear among the journalists who are working from different areas across the country, whether they have a working relationship with the security. But while to add a voice, I have my fellow colleagues working within the area, and right on my left is Julius Luemba, who is attached to the New Vision. I have Sentamu Moses, who is attached to KTV, but also Lubulwa Henry, who is the General Secretary to the HRNJ. But of course, all these journalists want to have a say. They want to add a voice to what happened yesterday in the area. And I want to start with Julius Luemba. Julius, welcome to Morning at NTV. But what do you have to say about what happened yesterday?
Thank you so much. It will be selfish of me to talk about human rights in regard to journalists. Human rights are universal. So this shouldn't be about journalists only. This is about the universal human rights. People were flogged, and you realize when you alienate one human right, it leads to an abuse of other human rights. For example, if you flog someone, if you beat someone, that you're abusing their rights. But again, they have a right to assemble or proceed wherever they want to proceed, as long as it is peaceful. You realize that on 10th December 1948, that is 3 years after the Second World War, the UN General Assembly drafted the Declaration of Human Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, among which we see that people are free to express their opinions in whatever way. Then in speciality, if you are to talk about the rights of the media and assembly, that is stipulated in Article 19 and 20 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was again adopted by the Ugandan Constitution, the supreme law of this land, under Chapter 4, Article 29. So whatever the military or the police did yesterday should be condemned in the strongest terms possible, because it goes against the fundamental human rights.
Julius, let me cut you short. If you're saying it should be condemned then, but then the security chiefs themselves have come out, Martin Okoth-Ochola said they will beat us for a cause. And who then to punish them?
I'm sorry to say these guys are becoming a liability to this government. I don't know why. Because a police chief to come up and talk or to support something that abuses human rights, we don't know where we are heading. I don't know what's wrong with these guys, but it should be condemned in the strongest terms possible.
Well, that's Julius Luemba. Musajja wa Kabaka Sentamu Moses. Ekyabaddewo olunaku olw'eggulo nga bannaffe bakubwa aba military.
Ekyabaddewo olunaku lw'ejjo tekyatuwadde kifaananyi kirungi ngaffe abaana abakayingira ate amawulire era abasuubira okuwulira amawulire ate tuzimbe ekintu kino kisigale ebbanga lyonna n'abalijja basangeyo nti amawulire weegali
waliwo eddembe mu
mawulire. Wabula ekyabaddewo ekyo kyayongedde otutiisa kati nze emirundi gye naakakubibwa bwe nawulira omwogezi wa polisi nga ate ayogera nti n'adumira polisi ng'agamba nti batukubwa wabula okutukuuma kindeetera ennyike ku mutima era kinneeraliikiriza kindeetera okulowooza ebiseera bye bankuba ne ŋŋamba kati baali bankuuma baali bakola ki wabula eddoboozi lyange ligenda eri ab'ebyokwerinda nti naffe tuli bantu tulina abazadde ne guno omulimu twagusoma era twagala tuguberemu mu bulungi nga tukolagana.
Well, let me speak to Henry Lubura, who is also the General Secretary of the HRNJ. But Henry Lubura, what happened yesterday?
If you look at what happened yesterday, Ivan, first and foremost, we need to first of all understand this was targeted. Because the people who commanded the operation were the same people who commanded the operation in Masaka and in Kalangala. And they targeted the very journalists and the very politicians who were in Kalangala and who were in Masaka. Look at John Cliff Wamala. He missed being attacked in Masaka, but again was beaten in Kampala. Look at Helen Nachimuli. She missed being beaten by the same commanders in Kalangala, but now beaten in Kampala. So it was targeted. It is contravening the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And all other international treaties and also African treaties. The African Union Commission has these treaties and the East African Community. So if they violate them in front of the United Nations Human Rights Office, it means that...
In fact, they were submitting physical evidence, I think, to the petition. Would you subscribe to my comment?
Yeah, it really means that these people are no longer threatened or even have any problem with beating any personal human being within this country. Because this is where people thought they would find solace. This is where they thought they would even get help from the international community. Now, they are sending a message to all of us that first and foremost, what we need to have is government and the people of this country to engage in a conversation that will help them have the rights of the people and citizens and the people at large being protected. Now, this does not come this doesn't come in a way that we should be just having a conversation, but we should make sure that all the people within this country fight so hard to have these people engage in protecting their rights. Now, government, the biggest problem is that government does not want to...
But if I cut you short, Henry, now where is the journalist going to report? If the police chief has a command that says we will beat you for a good cause and to protect you, now where is the journalist going to report?
Now the journalist needs to report. You know, we have had these declarations in court. We have declarations by the president, and we've had these conversations with even the top military officers. We had a conversation with the CDF himself, but then what comes out is just a statement of condemnation or even a statement that apologizes to the journalists. But the same things do happen even after a month also when they are beating our people. So what we need to do is have government get a lasting solution, which has far-reaching implications to the officers.
But even the commanders who institute or carry out such commands are never charged anywhere.
You see, this is why we're calling for far-reaching implications, because we've been having these people apologizing, and the court has always been ruling that these people should be condemned or even pay for collateral damage. But that is not just enough, because even after paying for all that, they still have to continue with the same things. So the far-reaching implication should have even government or even the titular leader of this country come in not only condemn, but also, if these acts continue, to have something that is bound to make him compelled to the rights and obligations of the people. Because if you sign international treaties, if you look at the Constitution of the country, Chapter 4 and Article 29 in particular, do guarantee all these rights, and the president ought, with his security operatives, to respect them. If they can't respect them, something else should be done, which also includes invoking Article 1 of the Constitution, that the people should come out and fight to have a different kind of governance.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us, Henry Lubula.
Thank you so much, too.
Well, Andrew Chamagelo, these are some of the colleagues who are working within my jurisdiction also, adding a voice to what happened yesterday in Kampala. But of course, we also continue to say sorry to our colleagues. We stand in solidarity with you. But as I sign out, I also want to say this. Mr. Secretary Chief, under your commands, the real fear, the real prison that you want to create is the fear you want to instill within us. Nevertheless, the best freedom is that and out of fear. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Ivan Kamana, Walnyoro in Entebbe, and the other colleagues. That is great to bring these to context. Mr. SEMPALA, just as before we wind up, is some people tweeting online that journalists are not grounded. We are not together as a bundle. We could say that we're going to demonstrate no covering securities anymore, and then you'll find other media houses covering. Or is this disunity in one way or the other working for our oppressors?
There are forces behind our disunity for people to know. Like when we always have issues, some journalists are called in the night to go and meet some security chiefs to say what happened is unfortunate, you know, this money is for you. You people also deserve to have a cake from government, and things like that. So they deliberately divide you. Disunity. Certainly we do not store similar common flaws. But even the pattern of ownership of our media houses in the country, most of the owners are confessed politicians, and it even surprises me when they say journalists should not participate in politics. Yet the bosses, the owners of media houses, are into parliament, ministers, everything. They are deliberately partisan in a way. So the divisions can never end, but we must at least maintain some degree of unity that enables us to have common fronts over such matters. And that one, we are forging it. Actually, we are really doing our best. Today, we are talking as Uja, we are talking as Uganda Parliamentary Association, as ACME, we are talking as WUMWA, Madama, Margaret Center. We are talking literally amongst ourselves, much as there are those that would never want to see a critical force or mass within the media industry that talks on common issues and told the same, like in the same directions. But that is work in progress. We have to continue pushing back again and or swimming against the tide. We know that there are people who are deliberately out to divide us, even within the security. Once things like this happen, they are calling some editors, please. They are calling some owners. They are calling, instead of coming out boldly to address the challenge.
Issue.
Yes. So these divisions will never end. For if anybody thinks that we're going to one time to a common line, I'm sure until these forces of the ugly forces are out of the way, we just can do what we can as we labor to keep our voices loud.
So what do we do? What's up next? What should journalists do in the work that, you know, we could say we're going to walk away from them, and before you know, they'll come and they'll say, oh, we are very sorry, we are investigating. That is a very old record. It's a broken record, by the way.
We don't want
so what do we do?
We don't want to lay all our cards on the table. We're keeping them on the chest. Certainly, people should know that we're working out a plan to make sure that we confront this ugly situation, because we cannot see our colleagues bleeding to hospitals, and these other guys are just joking about a serious situation that is life-threatening. We also will petition bodies like the UN, because now we know that they do not want anybody to go there. For some reason, we will have to go there and petition the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. We'll have to go to the embassies. We'll have to go to the EU. We'll have to go to these powers that they really think we.
Why do we even have to go to the powers? Can't we first address the powers that be in this land?
We have addressed the powers. For instance, last year we had a very successful meeting with representatives of the UPDF. And here the UPDF guys, the military, are beating us.
What UPDF
the very same guys. You meet with these guys, and then they issue contrary orders in the field. And that's why I always say it is semantics when they say, this should never have happened. But I know how they operate. They send the ugly cop and the good cop. They say, go and beat them, go and do the image cleaning.
Apologize.
Yes, apologize. Promise these things are not going to happen. Propose a meeting for all of us. And things, but in a way they are literally managing.
An action point.
Yes,
because their agenda will have been achieved. They are beaten. They call it, we were disciplined, which is wrong.
But also urge the owners now to have a little more sophisticated gadgets that can relay information, even without necessarily coming to the scene. That's one of the things that we are imploring the owners to adopt too.
To the new technology.
Yes, you do not stick on to a gadget that requires you to come close to a person who you certainly know is going to beat you and is going to break your jaws and, you know, disfigure you.
Very absurd.
So we must be very, very resilient and be adaptive to the situations. We do not do things the conventional way. When the tide is changing against
must
us,
change the tide.
We must. And also encouraging our colleagues to be more professional, keep away from harm's way, because you just have to live to tell a story. No
life is worth your story.
Is worth,
no story is worth your life.
Worth your life. And those things all have to be now to come into practice more than ever before. But I know that there's still hope for me. I've never lost hope. One time, Dave Douma Balikowa, who is one of the most celebrated journalists in Uganda, told us that no government can overlast the media. The media will stay longer to report about the demise of this whichever government, and then report about a new government, and things, you know, it's going to be a vicious circle. So no government should struggle so hard to end the media, because it's a very hard front for it. It will not succeed. Very
much. So thank you so much. That is Mr. Robert SEMPALA, the Executive Director at the Human Rights Network for Journalists. I, for one, as Andrew Chamagira, condemn in the strongest terms possible the actions of security agencies of pouncing on journalists and beating them in their line of duty. And we demand justice to this, and if this is not done, the relationship seems to be soaring. As a nation, we're healing the wounds. Shortly after election, we shouldn't get in this wave of, you know, clashing as agencies of security and media. But all those that were, you know, battered not only here in Kampala, but even during and after elections, I want to say that I send my heartfelt sympathy for you, but we believe on the other side, we'll see the brighter side. I'm Andrew Chamagira, and shortly after me, much more exciting programming follows on NTV. Remember to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And shortly after me, immediately, Farid and Akazwa will be coming up with Mwasuza Mutia. Good morning.